Welcome back to the Student Hub Live. Well, I hope you enjoyed that first session. It certainly got us thinking about academic integrity, and we hope that we've answered a lot of questions in the chat. But if there is something specific you'd like to know, please do pop your questions in the chat. And if you don't feel like you want to put it in the chat, but you'd like the answer to something, you can email us, which is studenthub@open.ac.uk. HJ and Orchester's back in the studio. Welcome back, Kester. You're going to be manning the chat for the hot desk, and we're going to be talking this session about collaboration. So what's the vibe at the minute out there with everyone? Is everyone eating cake still?
Not yet. I think it was just the message about email and cake. We still haven't figured that one out, but it may take a while. We've got some smart people here at the OU, so maybe they can figure that one out for us. But we are a bit nervous about starting our modules. We're kind of getting into it, exploring the websites, but as always, lots of great tips from people. And remember, you can send them in by our Twitter as well, @StudentHubLive, and we'd love to see them there as well, and we can share some of our favourite tips. But I always like the tips about having big posters of everything that we've got to do on the wall. That just helps me visualise everything. But there's also some TED Talks apparently on being in the mind of a master procrastinator, which I get so I watch these videos out of procrastination mainly, but they do have some good tips on there. So if you've got some to share in the chat, we'd love to hear them.
Absolutely. No, one of the brilliant things about Student Hub Live is this collaboration that you're all doing right now, talking together, sharing ideas, voicing your anxieties and reassuring each other, because it is all going to be okay. It is incredibly exciting, in particular for new students. Now, this morning we were talking about how you might get involved digitally, and we had a session that showed you how to use forums. We looked at when they might not and might be appropriate to access. We showed you the online tutorial system, and some of you even came in at lunchtime to have a look at that, and we talked and shared ideas about how studying might work best for us. And in this session we're going to talk about encouraging collaboration and avoiding collusion and getting the most from peer support. Now, I'm joined by Arlen Hunter and Lucy Gilbert. Arlen is the Head of School of Environment, Earth and Ecosystem Science at the Faculty of Science, Technology, Engineering and Maths, but she was one of the first university academic conduct officers, a role you've been doing for approximately 10 years now. And Lucy is a student who is studying DD 103. So we're here today to talk about how to make the most out of collaboration. Some of our students have been saying, how do I get a study buddy? How do I find out how to collaborate with people? And we've already mentioned that sometimes modules might have structured activities that require group work on forums. So what are we going to tell our students then about how to use collaboration to enhance their learning? Because some of them already said talking to somebody else is really useful. Some of them said talking to themselves is very useful to process learning. But actually talking to other students has a special place in terms of advancing your own understanding of certain things.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, it can help you apply what you're learning. So it makes you feel part of community. It allows you to test your understanding and also test other people's understanding. So if you talk with others and they give an answer and you think, well, why have they said that? That's part of good collaboration. So it's getting you thinking about your learning and then responding actively as well. So that can happen both informally within sort of study buddy type groups, but also within the more structured module specific activities too.
Now, Lucy, you're starting your studies, and I know you like, we've asked our audience actually about what they feel like collaborating and how they get in touch with people and whether they're going to tutorials or not. But you've joined some groups, haven't you? So you're involved in a number of things. Do you want to tell us what sort of ways you're trying to get together with other students?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I do the more formal things, so I personally enjoy going to these tutorials. I think that you get something out of the kind of face-to-face aspect of it, as well as, you know, online. The online tutorials are really great. Personally, for me, I use the WhatsApp group quite a lot. People from all over the country and further afield are part of that, and that's kind of great for just bouncing ideas off of people. It's quite an instant response kind of thing as well, so even if it's just for kind of motivational purposes, you know, if you're struggling with something and you just need somebody to say, it's fine, you're doing okay, like we're all in this together, as well as the Facebook pages. So I've joined a couple of Facebook pages for my module and stuff, and actually I found earlier that there's a Study Buddies group, so if you are looking for a study buddy, you can just go on the OU Study Buddies Facebook page, and hopefully there'll be somebody there that you can buddy up with.
Brilliant. So you've got a range of various aspects. Now, how do you find the time? Because you work as well, don't you? So how do you find the time to manage all of this, and when do you pick up and put down certain bits of it?
I tend to just fit it in when I can. So I try and sort of do 2 dedicated evenings a week, sort of Monday and Wednesday, and then if it's Sunday morning or whenever else. But having this kind of WhatsApp group and the Facebook pages means that it is a bit more easily accessible. So, you know, if I've got a question, I can ask it lunchtime, or quite often I think of things at 5:45 in the morning when I'm at the gym, you know, and somebody might not pick it up until 9 a.m, but then I can pick it up and drop it as I need to. So I tend to find those things are quite helpful.
Now let's have a think about these Facebook groups, because a lot of them are set up by students, moderated by students, for students, and they're outside the OU parameters, whereas the forums and things are within inside. And these have two very distinct spaces, because sometimes it's useful to be able to say, I'm up really late studying, and someone else says, I am too, and you think, good. And that might happen on a WhatsApp or Facebook group. Sometimes you might say, I'm up late studying, and someone else will say, well, I'm already 2 weeks ahead, and actually I got 83%, and I'm not up late at all, I'm watching TV or something, and then you feel really bad about yourself. And so there can be like pros and cons to some of this. But in terms of a study space, Arlene, what would you advise as useful in terms of learning, and when might it get overwhelming to sort of have that trade-off of the access and the community, which is really useful, but also sometimes it can maybe make you feel a bit bad and therefore decrease your motivation?
So, I mean, that's a really good question. And there's no easy answer to that, because it really comes down to the individual. So it's what works for you.
Yeah.
And if you go into one space and you're finding that there's too many people going, well, look at me, I've got this grade and I'm fantastic and I don't need to sort of study as much as other people, and that's not helping you, then leave that space. Go and find another space. There's lots of different groups that you can try. So if one group doesn't work, try a different one. I would also sort of say, think what you want from the activity as well. So if you want that pastoral support, if you want sort of just the sort of the moral sort of boost and the confidence and just to chat with people about your studies in general, then that's where WhatsApp and Facebook can really help. Whereas if you want something really structured, then maybe that's what's going to happen in the forum linked to your module. So look to see what the activity, what you want, and then choose whatever suits you best that way.
Okay, excellent. Now, we've asked our audience about their sort of feelings around a number of things. We asked them how they felt about collaborating. Half of them already do. 42% said that they'd like to, but they don't know how to. You mentioned the study buddy thing. Okay, so say you find a study buddy and you go, yes, let's study together. What do you then do? And what sort of is copying, what is cheating, how can you make the most of it, and how can you sort of make sure, I mean, one of the things that I was worried about was sometimes I thought, actually, I'm, you know, giving away too much information here to somebody, and then eventually I realised that by explaining it to somebody else, I was actually doing myself a favour, because I was clarifying a lot of stuff. But there can be inequalities of relationships as well, and I guess it's quite hard to negotiate, almost like dating really. What do you want, what don't you want, and what are the rules of engagement?
I think I found that the best way to do it is kind of, for starting out, you know, it is kind of a case of just sticking your head above the parapet and being sometimes the first one to say, does anyone want to study together? And then, you know, there is that conversation, like you said, of do you want to do it over the phone, email, Skype, WhatsApp? I'm part of this WhatsApp group, like I said, and I do sometimes have that concern that some of the things being discussed maybe aren't so appropriate, so people may be asking questions in the wrong way. So what did you write for TMA3? Or, you know, what should I write for this question? Whereas actually, me and Arlene were discussing this the other day, sometimes it's about kind of forming a discussion rather than answering the question, because a one-time answer isn't going to help students further down the line. And you do need to kind of protect your own answers and stuff. So there is that kind of worry of, like you said, am I giving away too much, or...
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, what you described was good collaborative practice where you are helping another and it's helping you. So collaborations where everybody wins from it in terms of you're learning by explaining the approach to answer an assignment without giving the answer away. So how did you get your notes in order? How did you think about answering that question? How did you pull the relevant pieces of information together? And how did you go back through and check your answer? Doing that kind of thing can help the other student rather than just say, here's the answer.
Yeah.
No one knows anything if you just give them the answer. They haven't learned anything. So I think good collaboration is about learning how to ask good questions.
Yeah.
And it's about not asking for the answer.
Yeah.
So how did you approach that? And developing your skills. material. So the next time you get that kind of question, you know what to do, rather than going, oh, I don't know, how do I start? What do I do with this?
Yeah.
So that's what I would say about collaboration. So make sure everybody's getting something from it.
Yeah. No, a lot of our students do. In fact, the number of people who would like to but don't know how to has been increasing as we've been talking. And Lisa said that she's been collaborating on her level 2 module, and she's found that really, really useful. And Ezekiel says that it's given him a lot of confidence in terms of collaborating with other people. Davin, however, is collaborating with his dogs to get through a packet of custard cream. So I don't think is the sort of collaboration we're talking about right now, Davin. But people are worried about to what extent you can talk about TMA questions, because sometimes on module forums, if you, well, certainly start asking the question, someone's going to rock up and say, please don't do that. But in a space where it's not moderated, I mean, that must, well, we know it goes on to some extent, and we know it's not helpful. So what are students allowed to talk about? You said it's about asking questions and thinking more about process than necessarily the answers, which is great. But equally, these are students, they're not necessarily teachers. And I think sometimes it's quite hard to flip that almost and think, well, if I were, or how might I scaffold some of this? How can they do that? And when is talking about a TMA question appropriate?
So you can talk about your assignments, but not talk about the answers, not talk about the final answer. And one thing as an academic conduct officer I see is where you get answers that are very similar. So they've got the same content, the same structure, or exactly the same wording, or the same examples are used all the way through. And that usually indicates people work too closely together or they've shared their answers. So when you're working with others within a group and somebody says, help, I'm stuck on question 3 in the TMA, I don't know what to do. Go back and think about, what did you do? How did you get started? So what were the trigger words within the question that got you thinking, yes, it's asking me about this. What's the action words? And you can help the other student that way by saying, let's unpick the question. Let's see the kind of things you've got to do. You could point them to relevant sources within the module materials and say, start off with that bit. You can maybe help them think about how you would make notes and how you yourself made notes. What I'd say is don't share your notes, because your notes may also result in an answer that's too similar to your own one. So if you share your sort of detailed sort of the notes that you've made for that assignment and somebody else uses those to structure their own answer, they might just be repeating what you have come up with. So think about the actions rather than the sort of the final point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny, I had a student the other day who said to me, they sent me an email and they said, I don't know whether I should mention the HPA Axis in my answer, because people on Facebook say that you should. And I said, okay, well, why do you think that's relevant to this particular question? And she said, I don't know. It's just that people on Facebook were saying that. And very often, even in science, there's more than one way. I won't say to skin a cat, but there's more than one way to answer a question. Often it's not just that there are a right number of examples. You can often pull different things in and have a really high mark that's sort of shown some originality. There's always a lot of scope, and like you say, having the same examples is an indication sometimes of cheating. But what might sort of happen in terms of students saying things like that on Facebook maybe? Lucy, I mean, you've had examples of this before where people have been sort of talking about, do I do this? And it's quite, distressing for people.
Yeah, and I think the problem can be if you see that and that's not what you've written in your TMA, that can cause you to kind of doubt yourself. And it's not necessarily that you've done anything wrong, it's just that you haven't used that as an example.
Yeah.
And that can kind of cause you to feel demotivated and could lead to kind of further problems down the line. So I think you're better off kind of sticking with what you think and trying to help the other person maybe come to their own kind of conclusions about it. And if you both get something out of that, great. But don't just do what everybody else has done.
Yeah.
Because just because they've done it doesn't mean it's the right thing, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, they might be all saying the wrong thing. So it could be that someone has picked up the wrong end of the question and they've gone off on a tangent. And because they're quite vocal, others start saying, maybe I should be doing that as well. So suddenly everybody is saying, we need to be doing this. And you might be sitting going, well, that's not how I've interpreted the question. So stick to what you think.
Yeah.
And assessment is about testing what you understand and what you can apply. So if you're just repeating what someone else has said, you're not testing what you understand with that. So that is really the key.
So the sorts of things that people might be able to do and hold themselves, in high regard still is say, how is this linked? Can you explain the logic? And again, going back to what you were saying about the process and understanding how that evidence might link to that question can shed a lot of insight about either whether it is or isn't appropriate, but also someone may have a completely plausible path through that. It might make sense to that particular regular person, but if you don't understand it, it's not going to make sense to you because you haven't got that line of inquiry. Okay, a lot of people are attending tutorials, and particularly online tutorials, and a lot of students are in contact with module forums as one of the key areas, but also about 40% are in contact with the student Facebook groups. So it's good to see that people are interested in collaborating. Let's take a quick trip to the hot desk. HJ and Kester, how's everything over there?
Yeah, it's busy. There's a lot of chatter on there. Someone mentioned how they collaborate with their cat, which is quite funny, I thought. Davin had an interesting perspective on it when they're careful when it comes to social media, because sometimes people have been discussing answers rather than a discussion on the topic, so they've left it due to that. So yeah.
And we've been discussing like all the different ways that we collaborate as well. So some people like to use Facebook groups, other people prefer the forums. Julia said she used a wiki and tutorial group at her level 2 module, and she's made lots of friends from it, which is really great to hear. But she also invited the tutor, so there was someone there to see what's going on, but most of the time they just had a chat about everything not related to the module, which is really nice. So there's other ways we can collaborate. Sometimes it's nice just to have a chat with people. Stephanie likes using the tutor group forums, said they can be good in a module, and Rachel's got a really nice comment. I feel collaboration is not so daunting now I'm engaged in this, and we've got lots of nice tips in the chat, and we're talking about referencing software as well, so lots of good sharing collaboration in the chat.
Oh, good. Well, we've got about one of these a month, everyone, so you can come along lots and talk, and actually, you know, to be completely fair, there are a lot of people who do come along regularly and really help the other people, so thank you to all our regular contributors for helping people who may be a little bit excited and anxious about their studies. So please do keep spreading the love and attending these sessions. Now, I wanted to ask about this whole policy about, you know, what might go wrong. So there is a social networking policy. So even if things are outside the OU, even if tutors are on social networking things, there is this massive divide between things that are within the OU sort of parameters, like the tutor group forums, some of the students' association, cafes, etc. The Facebook groups are not. Even if tutors are involved in those, they're often not moderated spaces. So what is the policy, and what should happen if students are talking about answers and things on Facebook?
Okay, so what I would encourage people to do, if you go into either a tutor group forum or a module forum or a social media forum and somebody's doing something that you're not happy with, then don't just ignore it. Go and talk to your tutor, or sort of talk to the student support team and sort of say, you know, what should you do? What's happening here? You could also post a message in that forum, and if you're feeling brave enough to say it's not appropriate to share answers or to do anything that you think is inappropriate. The policy itself you can find on Student Home if you go to the Help Centre tab, and just follow the links through to the policy documents, and it sets what good practice is. And what I would say to anybody is that any kind of forum within a module or within the Open University is moderated and it is looked after. Anything outside the OU is not. So whoever set up the Facebook group or is in charge of that, the named person in charge, they have a responsibility to the university to make sure that they don't bring us into disrepute. And that's what the social networking policy is all about. So they need to make sure that that group, even though it's completely separate from the university, that they're abiding by that sort of agreement, because we're linking people from the Open University. So we do identify bad practice in some forums, unfortunately, and that does lead to sort of cases being investigated by people like myself, academic conduct officers, and it can lead to a penalty against the grade. So, you know, it's better not to share, not to take answers.
You private message maybe the admin person of that post, because it's a shame to leave a space that you find supportive, but equally sometimes it can make you feel really awkward. I know you had an experience, didn't you?
Yeah, I've had a couple of experiences of people. And I think it's, you know, it's not out of malice or trying to do anything untoward, but people screenshotting things and posting them in groups, not realising that they're not supposed to be doing that sort of thing.
It's trying to be helpful a lot of the time, isn't it? But for some people that cannot be helpful. Yeah,
and I think it can make you feel awkward, and it can make you maybe withdraw, or, you know, I have been part of another WhatsApp group where I sort of stopped looking because I sort of thought I don't want to see this kind of thing. It makes me feel uncomfortable when I know it's not supposed to be posted in there. So I think, like Arlene said, it's best to kind of contact somebody and just sort of say, what should I do, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I would add that when I do have to contact people as an academic conduct officer, often it is the person saying, "Oh, I was just trying to help my friend," or "I thought it would be helpful." So it's recognising what is good collaboration, what can help, and also to be aware of, even if you're sharing something with a friend, if you put it up in a social media place, you don't know who else is looking, you don't know where it might go. So it might be okay sharing it with that friend, but that friend might then share it with another friend, and who knows where it might end up. So don't share your answers, is what I'd say as academic conduct.
No, it's so important. And, you know, I can sort of hear that a lot of the sort of point of collaboration is not about the right answers or about this should go in or that. It's about the process and partly about listening to each other and also having a space to clarify your own understanding, your own learning. And it's this whole building of arguments, isn't it? It's like what Peter and Dean were talking about earlier, is that, you know, in a peer review process, we want to be critical of each other's work so that we can have good arguments and they're based on solid evidence.
Absolutely, yes. It's about learning to speak as an academic, whatever your subject area is. So I'm a scientist. It's about practicing that scientific terminology, putting it into context, checking that you understand it, and sort of testing the depth of your understanding. And that's best done by talking with others who are at a similar stage to you. So you can really share that experience. That's what good collaboration is really about.
Brilliant. Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Well, Leanne says she's feeling so much better already as a result of attending this. So I'm really, really pleased, Leanne. And also, both of you are talking about how your cats are not good collaborators, Leanne and Evelina, and that they just knock pens off the table and things. No, they're not, but sometimes just talking and verbalising your stuff can be useful, even if they do knock your pens off the desk. I saw this funny thing on Facebook the other day, which was this tray that your cat could sit on and judge your unfinished work from afar. And I thought that was a brilliant thing to have on your desk. Okay, great. So we've talked about some of the practical solutions. We've talked about some of the ways that things could be scaffolded. And I guess one of the take-home points is think about what's helpful, as you say, Arlene, to you in your studies, and think about the process and again, how you can get what you need from those specific groups at a specific time. I wanted to touch on this idea of temporality, which we've been talking about before. Are you in or are you out? Does it have to be right at early days, you know, in terms of when you join groups? Can you join later? Can you come in? Can you go out? You know, who notices what and how might that work at different stages of your study?
I would say it's never too late to start a group. So if you're looking for somebody you want to study with and there isn't a group within your tutor group or within your module, post a message, be brave. There might be others out there going, oh, I wish I had a study buddy. And it just needs that one person to prompt that. And with Facebook and WhatsApp, you can go in at any point and join those. You'll know more about that.
I mean, I've joined and unjoined a couple of Facebook groups, ones that I've thought maybe this isn't so much for me. And as we talked about before, sort of physically removing yourself so that you don't have to see things that you don't want to. Because sometimes it's just, you know, people in all innocence posting how great they've done, but that might not make you feel good. So just physically removing yourself from that. Or, like we said, kind of starting up new groups, new chats. I've recently posted in my module forum about doing a meetup, and you know, why not try?
Yeah,
that's the kind of main
exactly.
thing.
You never know. But I guess once you get that study buddy, it's about thinking, how much time have we both got? How might we? It's logistical, isn't it? How might we get in contact? And as you say, think about the process. And I guess at a very basic level, you might pick up something that interests you and explain it to each other. I know when I had this great friend, and we used to sort of say, I'm really into this chapter, I'm into this chapter. We used to explain it to each other because we both liked it, so we were more keen on it. And so we sort of have these sessions, and we both just do that, and it worked really, really well.
Yes, and it may be that sort of having a study buddy for some part of your studies works, but then you'll get to a point where you think, okay, I'm looking for something different. So that's when to go and talk to somebody else. There's nothing wrong with saying, this is great, we can continue being friends, we can continue talking in general, but and I need help, or I want to be talking about this kind of thing.
Exactly. So, everyone's got changes in circumstances, and it's not a marriage for life. So great. Well, you've given us some brilliant ideas, Arlene and Lucy. Thank you so much for coming along, and I hope you're all feeling better at home. We'll pop the link into that, and of course we'll have more information in our Refreshers Orientation event, which is next week. We've got 2 jam-packed days of all the things you need to know about OU study. So for all those new students, we'll show you how the ETMA system works. We'll show you the virtual learning environment. We'll be talking to your students support team, talking to tutors. There are lots and lots of really interesting sessions there. This is all about skills. It's about getting in the right headspace. So don't worry about all those logistical aspects. We will cover them all next week here at the Student Hub Live. Okay, we're going to have a video now about avoiding plagiarism, so an important thing, and one of the fantastic assets from our team at the library, who will do a lot to support you in your study. There are also a lot of resources on the website that you might want to take a look at. There is the Developing Good Academic Practice website, and also OU Skills for Study, which have some great advice about some of the content that we've been talking about. So I will be back to talk about the importance of writing in your own words, a topic we have been dealing with at random points throughout today, in a couple of minutes with Alan and Claire. I'll see you soon.